Good evening, gentle dreamer, and welcome back to Storytime Boulevard, your destination to sleep. I'm Andrew, and as always, I'm honored to be your guide on tonight's journey into dreams. Here, the streets are paved with moonlight. The lamps glow with the warmth of 1,000 stars, and every turn leads you somewhere safe, somewhere soothing, somewhere magical. Tonight, we invite you to settle in, to let go of the weight of the day, and to surrender to the quiet magic that awaits. Before we begin our story, let's take a moment to prepare ourselves for deep, restful sleep with a gentle meditation to guide you there. Find a comfortable position, whether curled beneath soft blankets or resting where the night cradles you best. Close your eyes. Let the world grow still. Breathe in deeply and exhale slowly. Feel the tension leave your body. With every breath, your muscles soften, your heartbeat slows, your mind becomes light, open, and ready to receive the magic of the night. Now listen, can you hear it? The whisper of the wind, calling you gently, inviting you into a place where dreams are woven like silk, where the air hums with old magic, where the night itself is alive with possibility. As you sink deeper into relaxation, repeat these words to yourself, either in your mind or spoken softly. I am safe. I am at peace. The night embraces me with warmth and rest. I release the worries of the day. I am exactly where I need to be. And now, gentle dreamer, the story begins. Let the wind carry you to the quiet, mystical world of Evermoor, where whispers hold magic, and the night is filled with stories untold. Not all winds howl through the mountains or race across the sea. Some winds are softer, quieter, threading between the trees, slipping through the cracks of old stone cottages, swirling over rivers that shimmer under the moonlight. These winds do not rush, they listen. And in Evermoor, where the mist clings to the earth like a gentle sigh, and the sky is always painted in hues of silver and blue, the wind is not just wind, it is something more. It is a keeper of whispers, a silent messenger of spells too delicate to be seen, a patient collector of long-forgotten wishes. Here, in this quiet and mystical place, the wind has never known the weight of thunder. It has never been asked to carry shouts or cries. Instead, it weaves through the world like a secret never meant to be spoken aloud. The witches of Evermoor have always understood this. Their magic does not crackle with fire, nor boom like tempests. It drifts, gentle as the falling of a single feather. They do not summon magic with bold voices or grand gestures. They whisper. A hush of a spell turns mist to rain. A sigh sends petals unfurling in the moonlight. A single soft breath can stir a sleeping star awake. For centuries, they have followed this tradition. Never louder than the wind, never stronger than a breath. It is a magic meant to go unnoticed. A magic meant to respect the silence. But silence, like the wind, is not always meant to last. And one witch, one curious, untamed, restless witch, was about to change the way Evermoor whispered forever. In Evermoor, every witch was taught from the moment they could speak that magic must be soft. The wind listens best when it is not startled, the elders would say. Magic is like a feather on the breeze, too heavy and it falls, too loud and it scatters. A whisper is all it takes. And so the young witches learn to shape their spells with the hush of their breath. They whispered to the morning dew, and it would turn to mist. They murmured to the trees, and their branches would bend just so. They sighed into the night sky, and the stars would flicker in response. But there was one witch whose magic did not belong in a whisper. Her name was Ray, and the wind never bent easily for her. She tried. Oh, how she tried. She would press her lips together, soften her breath, and let the words slip from her tongue like silk. But no matter how delicate she made her voice, the spells never took hold the way they did for the others. She whispered to the sky, but the clouds did not shift. She sighed into the air, but the leaves did not stir. She hushed a spell into her palms, but it only faded like a dying ember. Her magic did not want to be silent. It did not want to drift like a feather. It wanted to rise. It wanted to hum and ripple and tremble with energy. Ray would watch the other witches as they cast their spells with ease, soft as the wind, light as air, and wonder why the same magic did not live within her. Perhaps I was not meant to be a witch at all, she thought. It was a dangerous thought, a lonely one. She did not tell the elders, nor did she tell the others in the coven. She did not tell Lena, the one witch who had always been her friend. Though she could see the question in Lena's eyes every time Ray's spells flickered and faltered. Instead, she kept her voice lower, quieter, softer, until she could barely hear it herself. Still, it was not enough. The elders of Evermoor were patient at first. "You must quiet your magic," they told her. "The wind will never listen if you do not learn to whisper." But the wind did not listen. And slowly, Ray began to feel like perhaps she should not be listened to at all. So one evening, beneath the rising silver moon, Ray did what no witch of Evermoor had done before. She left. She slipped through the trees before dawn could find her, following the pull of something older than the coven, older than the whispers, older than Evermoor itself. A different kind of wind was calling her now. And Ray, who had spent her whole life trying to be quiet, decided to listen. At first, there was only silence. Ray walked alone beneath the heavy sky, her cloak brushing against the damp earth as the trees whispered behind her. She did not know where she was going, only that she was going. The path was unfamiliar, the air thick with the scent of pine and rain-soaked moss, and yet something was pulling her forward. Not the soft, silken wind of Evermoor, the one that carried the delicate spells of her coven. This wind was different. It did not slip away when she spoke. It did not hush her when she breathed too deeply. It did not vanish when she tried to call it by name. No, this wind lingered. It curled around her ankles, rustled through her hair, and whistled through the branches above her, carrying something just beyond her reach. A whisper? No, a melody. Come, come, come. The sound was neither spoken nor sung, but something in between. A call carried by the breeze, not a command, not a warning, but an invitation. And so Ray followed. She walked through forests where the trees stood taller than towers, their trunks lined with silver veins that pulsed like quiet heartbeats. She crossed fields where golden fireflies pulsed in time with her own breath, blinking yes, yes, yes in the dim blue night. She waded through rivers as still as mirrors, where the water whispered secrets to the wind, and the wind laughed back. The further she travelled, the louder the wind became. It no longer merely curled around her, it danced. It spun through the air like a restless spirit, tugging at the edges of her cloak, stirring the ground beneath her feet. It was not soft like the wind of Evermoor. It did not settle. It did not hush. It did not bow. And Ray, who had spent her life being told that the wind would never listen to her, suddenly had the most peculiar feeling. The wind was not meant to listen. It was meant to sing back. A laugh bubbled up in her chest, unbidden and unrestrained, and she let it out. For the first time in years, Ray did not try to quiet herself. She threw back her head and laughed, feeling the sound spill into the night air, rich and wild and free. The wind caught it. It twirled with it, spun with it, lifted it into the sky. It did not hush her. It answered her. And in that moment, Ray understood. "You were never meant to obey me, were you?" she whispered. No, because she did not have to whisper here. The wind swirled around her, curling against her palms, wrapping itself into her words, catching at the syllables, not to take them away, but to hold them. She lifted her hands, fingers brushing against the cool night air, and she did something she had never done before. She sang. Not a song with words, not a melody with meaning, but a sound born of nothing but feeling. And the wind, ever wild, ever free, sang back. For the first time in her life, Ray did not feel too loud. She did not feel wrong. She felt heard. And in that moment, she knew. She was not lost. She was exactly where she was meant to be. Evermoor had always been quiet. The wind moved gently through the trees, carrying only what was given to it. Whispers, soft spells, the breath of sleeping forests. The witches of Evermoor never spoke too loudly, never disturbed the delicate hush of their world. But something had changed. The silence was no longer the same. Lena had noticed it the moment Ray left. At first, she tried to ignore it, tried to go about her days as she always had. She whispered her spells. She let the wind carry them away. She listened as the elders spoke of balance, of order, of the way things had always been. But the wind did not move the way it once had. It curled differently through the branches, hesitated before slipping through the cracks of old stone cottages, lingered where it used to pass by without a thought. And worst of all, it no longer carried Ray's voice. Lena hadn't realized how much space Ray's presence had taken up in her world until it was gone. Ray, who had always walked a little too fast, who had always felt too much, who had never truly fit into the silence of Evermoor, but had somehow made it feel brighter just by being there. Without her, something was missing, not just in the coven, in the wind itself. Days passed, then a week, and then one night, when the moon hung low and full over Evermoor, the wind shifted. Lena had been sitting by the river, watching the water slip over smooth stones. Her thoughts tangled like vines in her chest. She let out a slow sigh, barely a whisper, just as she had always been taught. But the wind did not take it. It twisted, curling against her cheek, tugging at the edges of her cloak, pulling her gaze toward the forest beyond the river. And then she heard it, a sound carried in the air, too distant to be clear, too strong to be mistaken. It was not a whisper. It was laughter. And Lena knew with the certainty of the stars in the sky, it was Ray. Her breath caught. She stood before she had time to think, stepping toward the edge of the water as the wind urged her forward. "Come," it seemed to say. Lena hesitated. She had never stepped beyond the borders of Evermoor. She had never questioned the elders, never doubted the ways of their magic. She had never chased the wind before, but this time the wind was chasing her. It wrapped around her wrists, threaded through her hair, beckoned her forward. And for the first time in her life, she listened. She ran across the river, through the trees, past the borders of Evermoor where no witch had dared to tread before. The world beyond the coven was bigger than she had imagined. The trees were taller, stretching endlessly toward the sky. The air was thicker, richer, full of something she had never felt before. The ground hummed beneath her feet, like a song waiting to be heard. And the wind was alive. It moved, it played, it called. And then, through the trees, she saw her. Ray, standing in the heart of a clearing where the air shimmered with unseen magic, where the wind did not merely carry spells, but danced with them. She was laughing, head tilted back, arms outstretched, her voice spilling into the sky like light breaking through storm clouds. She was not trying to be soft. She was not trying to be careful. She was simply herself. And the wind sang with her. Lena stepped forward, her heart pounding. Ray turned at the sound, her golden eyes catching the moonlight, a quiet knowing in her gaze. "You don't have to whisper here," Ray said softly. Lena hesitated. She had spent her whole life learning to be gentle, unseen, careful. But standing here, in a place where magic hummed beneath her skin, where the wind did not hush but answered, she wondered if magic had been waiting all along, not for silence, but for a voice willing to meet it. Lena took a slow, steady breath, and for the first time in her life, she did not whisper. She spoke a single word, a single note, a spell. And the wind, ever restless, ever listening, answered her back. Evermoor had always been a place of quiet magic. For centuries, the witches whispered their spells into the breeze, trusting the wind to carry their power without question, without change. Their magic was soft as silk, light as feathers, never louder than the hush of falling leaves. It had always been this way, until Ray, until Lena, until the night they returned to Evermoor, with the wind moving differently around them. At first, no one noticed. The elders sat in their stone circle, speaking of balance, of order, of the way things had always been. The witches of Evermoor whispered their spells as they always had, murmured to the sky, breathed into the air, sent their magic drifting on the quiet. But the wind did not carry the whispers the same way. It lingered longer in the air. It curled strangely through the trees. It shimmered, not just soft, but full, awake, restless. And then, one by one, the witches began to notice something else. The wind did not move through Evermoor as it once had. It sang, not loudly, not wildly, but in a way it never had before. A hum, a pulse, a rhythm just beneath the surface of the world. A wind that did not simply obey. A wind that listened. A wind that answered. It whispered in voices that had never been heard before. It carried laughter as easily as it carried spells. It rippled with something new, something waiting, something alive. And at the center of it all stood Ray and Lena. No longer just two witches who had stepped beyond Evermoor's borders. They had returned changed, and the wind had changed with them. The coven gathered, silent, uncertain. The elders frowned. They had spent lifetimes teaching that magic should be quiet, that power should be unseen, untouched, unshaken. But when they looked at Ray, standing in the moonlight, her magic humming through the air like a melody once forgotten. When they looked at Lena, who had always followed the rules, now glowing with something unspoken, something powerful, they felt something shudder in the silence. A question unasked, a possibility unspoken. Had they been wrong? Lena stepped forward, her voice not raised, not forceful, just steady. The wind has never been only whispers, she said. We only thought it was. The words hung in the air, not fading, not lost, but held. The wind did not take them away. It carried them, not like a secret, but like a song. And somewhere deep in the bones of Evermoor, where spells had once been buried in silence, where the wind had only ever known how to obey, something shifted. A new kind of magic, one that had always been there, waiting. And if you walk the edges of Evermoor now, when the air is still and the moon is high, you will hear it. Not just a sigh, not just a whisper, something in between, something alive, a love, a song, a name, Ray, Lena, and the wind forever changed. The end. And so, dear dreamer, as the whispers of Evermoor fade into the night, may you find comfort in the soft embrace of the wind, in the quiet magic that surrounds you, in the gentle rhythm of your own breath. May you remember that your voice, whether a whisper, a song, or something in between, deserves to be heard. May your dreams carry you to places where the stars listen, where the wind hums your name, where every story feels like home. And as you drift into rest, know that the world will wait for you, soft, steady, full of wonder, until morning comes again. From all of us here at Storytime Boulevard, we wish you a peaceful sleep, a heart full of dreams, and a night wrapped in quiet magic. Good night.
Mm-hmm.